Watchdog, and are you there?
Yes, we are.
You started with, or I started without you.
Yes, you did. You got to pay attention there, Jordan. You think just because you're sitting in a bar you can take it easy?
Hey, let me tell you what.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable.
I bet you are.
And I'm not drinking none of that
happy juice.
That happy juice. I'm drinking me a Coca-Cola. So I'm down here at the Market House Bar and Grill. Come down and share a Coca-Cola with me.
Or if you prefer something a little
more adult.
Yes.
They have some specials going on today. A bucket of beer and 8 wings. That's a pound of wings for $10. $1 domestics and $2 well drinks. That's down here at the Market House Grill in Elm Grove on Kruger Street. It'll be lots of fun.
Yes, it will. Go keep Jordan company since everybody else is in here.
I know. I'm all by myself. It's so sad.
I am so sorry.
How are the roads getting over there?
The roads are bad. I had to get my dad to drive me out here.
Wow.
I was like, can you take me to work?
I hope you're going to tell me that he's got like some big SUV tank or something.
Yeah, he's got a big truck.
Okay, all right. Otherwise, if he had shown up in some little Alero or something, I would have really doubted your masculinity for a moment.
Here's what happened. I got on his back, and he walked me out because I was afraid to get my shoes wet. So that's what I did.
Well, that's nice of him.
No, you know?
That's what daddies do.
And he kept kicking him faster. It's cold out.
I had like a whole horse whip. I'm like, whoosh.
Oh, nice.
Keep it
up,
man.
Jordan. Keep it up. You're already digging a hole here.
So you're spending the night there.
I hope he comes and gets me later. I'll be walking home.
Jordan's dad, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't.
Oh, Lola, you're supposed to be on my side.
It's always warmer at home.
I know, but, this is your dad.
No, I
know.
Your
dad.
My pappy.
Pap.
Well, I'm down here, like I said, the Market House Grill all by myself.
Interesting.
That was. What was that? Anything happened there, Jordan?
What?
We heard.
It was out here on the street.
Oh, was it?
I think it was the plow went by, but boy, it sounded like something got
Sounded like something was
hit.
collapsing, yeah. It's okay, just build it. Just go ahead.
Don't you guys go dying on me. I can't pull this horseshoe on my own.
You think?
Just go to commercial.
I'm Jordan Klein in the booth today, Mr. Nick Queen and the lovely Lola Miller. Also, we got Evan, who's keeping Nick company because he needs a sidekick when I'm not around.
What color are you on then?
He's green.
I've got him on green. No, he doesn't. Pull the mic around.
Oh,
That's
he's
not
blue.
the right
That's
mic.
blue, yeah.
No, pull it around and grab the next one.
Evan, when
there
she tells you to
go.
do something, you do it.
Well, he grabbed the blue one, and it
for
doesn't
him.
work that well.
Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. Hey, if you need directions to the Market House, call Lola, and she'll let you know. Because let me tell you what, it's snowing outside, but it's warm in here. So come out and spend some time with me. I'm lonely.
Oh, yeah, and I think it wasn't snowing when I came in. So I think we're in that little lull. So hopefully it'll last 2.5 hours. Go on out
before
and
the storm.
Well, go on out and see Jordan. Roads aren't bad now, and
see, and it could be your last time because you never know. We're supposed to get 10 inches.
Well, they're saying another 2 to 4 overnight, and then something else tomorrow. But
Hey, well, you know what? It could be your last time to get out before the new storm hits.
Yeah, yeah. There
and
you go.
Who better to spend it with?
Than Jordan.
Than me.
Than
right.
dollar domestics.
Yeah.
Than a dollar domestic.
That's another point well taken.
Okay, we
In
got
the
the pen trip
vicinity of
coming up.
Jordan.
Oh, yeah, the pen trip.
I want to remind everybody about the pen trip coming up. Still working out details with the pen, but if you give us an email, whispers1600@gmail.com, let us know you're interested. We can keep you updated. We got like 15 seats left, I believe, out of the 30 we're selling.
But since we haven't also put everything up yet, and none of them have paid money.
Yeah, they're all up for grabs. We're just holding the initial.
Those people have got their hands on their wallet. They've got they're in there ready. So
it's June 30th, and that is a Wednesday. We also have the demonologist, Dwayne Claude, who's going to be joining us before the event. He's going to be giving a presentation on demonology. That's going to be sponsored by Grandview Park in Moundsville. And, of course, our lovely pizza is going to be sponsored by the DeCarlos in Elm Grove.
Speaking of people paying, Jordan, how much is this going to cost our listeners?
Nikki?
Well, that's the problem. First off, I would pray for people for the snow to stop so that we can actually have business conducted. It's disrupted everything. So we're just trying to get in contact with people at the pen and actually work out how much the pen costs, because I still haven't got the letter from them yet.
Because they change their prices kind of every year. And we know we had it last year, but we got more events coming this year with it, and they haven't said what their price is going to be. So we're still in the air. Hopefully, our goal is to definitely get that situated this week.
And it's going to be affordable, no matter what. So.
Yeah, it's not going to be like $500 like, was it Waverly Hills?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to do that to you.
Well,
We'd like to. Lola tells us we should, but we're not going to.
No, oh, that was not.
Don't make Lola the...
Lola's the bad guy all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
somebody has to be the mom.
And we're glad it's you, and not Nick. Speaking of which, guess what happened Sunday?
Oh.
I want to talk to you all a little bit about our Super Bowl Sunday. It was a wonderful time where Nick and Evan like to bet on games. As you know, last time Evan, I think it was the Vikings-Jets game.
No, it was the Jets,
Jets and
Chargers.
Oh, it was Jets and Chargers?
Yep.
Evan made a bet and lost. He had to shave off his goatee. He then looked like a 12-year-old boy. This time, they're like, hey, let's up the stakes. Whoever loses has to wear a dress to church. So either way, for me, it's a win-win, either seeing Nikki in a dress or Evan in a dress. But Evan is again the loser and has to put on his Sunday best.
Who would have thought he would have lost betting on the Indianapolis Chargers?
I know. It was 10-1.
Or Indianapolis Colts. What am I thinking? Yeah.
Chargers, yeah.
But he
What am I
definitely
doing?
lost again. I will have my camera. There will be pictures of it, and it will be on the website somewhere.
Yeah, this will be next Sunday. It should happen.
It'll be very enjoyable.
Oh, it's
Actually,
gonna be good
people
time
were
for
already,
everybody.
because Evan was supposed to come this week to church, but got out of it due to Valentine's
Yeah,
Day or
we were in
something, whatever
Pittsburgh.
excuse he used. Which I'm glad, Jordan, because you weren't there because you were sick. It will be enjoyable this coming Sunday. So
Which that means Nick will probably have to show up at my house early to help me get dressed up.
I'm not going to help you get dressed. You're on your own there, buddy.
You want Nick to put your makeup on?
Yeah.
Now, just
I wanna
remember,
look
use
pretty.
bare minerals because they don't
I'll
clog
bring
your
up-
pores, and
yeah.
it gives you that nice fine matte
You should probably
finish.
shave your growth off too, the beard.
Lola,
Be a little more
what do you
feminine.
think? Do you think that Evan's going to need some help getting all dressed up?
Well, Lisa will be there, correct? Won't Lisa be able to help him?
Vic-
I think so.
He's
but-
got a girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, she should have a ball. Are you going to wax your eyebrows, too?
I've been debating about going all out and buying some sexy underwear, shaving my face again.
Wow.
I've
You need
actually
to-
put a lot of thought into this.
You need to shave your legs.
If this
We're
turns
thinking
into
about
a
it.
Victoria's Secret commercial, I definitely want photos.
Oh, I
Okay.
think I just threw up.
Next time I'm here, I might be Evelyn for all we know.
Okay. Well, we have our guest on the line.
All right, go ahead, Nikki.
Poor guy.
That's okay. Tim can take it.
Well, yeah, that is right. This might end up in his book here, but Tim O'Brien's the spokesperson for the Ripley's Believe It or Not. We've talking about all kinds of weird stuff. Tim, are you with us?
Oh, wait a minute. There you go.
Yeah,
There you are. Okay, there you are.
here I am.
So, have you ever heard anything about the weird stuff that we could somehow get Evan in there?
You know, from just the 30 seconds that I heard you guys, I think you all could qualify.
And you don't know how happy that makes me. That's just sad that I would admit that, but this is great. So you're the corporate spokesperson for Ripley. What kind of fun stuff do you get to do? Because that seems like one of the best jobs in the world.
You know, I think it is. I really do. I've been with them for 7 years now, and I am their VP of communications at corporate level, and I'm the corporate spokesperson, but I also am responsible for all the promotions, events, and public relations for the company, corporate. I edit the daily comic strip, and I produce and co-host the Ripley radio show.
Wow. You sound like a busy guy.
Every morning I wake up and turn my email on, and you never know what you're going to get when you work for Ripley. So that's fun. Yeah, it is. It's an amazing amount of work, but it's I tend to have a tendency to gravitate towards weird things and weird people and the macabre side of life anyway. So this is perfect.
Yeah, so hence he's on our show.
Yeah. Well, he asked me, tell me about Whispers. I was like, oh, you're right down our alley.
Yes. Or better yet, we are right down his.
Yeah, we're right down yours, yeah.
But see, we don't whisper anything on our show. We put an exclamation point.
That's true, that's true.
And that's screaming.
Now, how exactly did you get this job? I mean, what were you doing before? How did you get? I mean, how do they approach? What was the resume? You have to show your shrunken head collection.
How did you qualify for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to show my shrunken head.
Yeah.
I knew the company. I knew it very well. I was a journalist for 36 years, and 18 of those last years, I was senior editor of a magazine called Amusement Business, which covers the theme park, entertainment, attractions, sideshows, circuses, etc. Wow. And my beat was the attractions, circuses, and sideshows and theme parks. So I got to know all these guys. I probably visited virtually all but one or two of the United States Ripleys when I worked for the company, and I got to know all the guys, and I'd interviewed them and done a lot of stories over the years. And I always thought, man, if I ever wanted to get out of journalism and midlife here and change my career a little bit, Ripley's is definitely the company I'd want to go with. So, I called them one day, and here I am.
Wow. Geez, do they take resumes all the time? I mean, if I put your name on a letter, will it help?
Today probably wouldn't.
Great.
So give me another week, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, you're snowed in where you're at right now, right?
We're pretty well, yeah. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I work out of Nashville, and our corporate offices are in Orlando.
Oh,
but I choose to live in Nashville, and it is. We've got a couple inches of snow on the ground, and I'm a Yankee at heart. So when I look here and see schools canceled when there's the first snowflake, I kind of laugh. But the streets are a bit slippery because we get a lot of ice here in Nashville.
See, today we're still digging out from a storm a week ago or so, and today it's snowed some every single day. But yesterday they started with the the warnings, the bread and milk and toilet paper alerts and all that kind of stuff. So today, sure enough, mid-afternoon it started, and just as I was getting ready to go home about 3 o'clock, the roads were really treacherous. Now we're in a lull and it's kind of stopped, but we're supposed to get another 2 to 4 overnight and then even more tomorrow. All I can say is thank God I'm not in upper state New York. That's the only saving grace to all of this.
Yeah, it's been an amazing winter. Did you see, and talking about believe it or not, did you see a couple days ago that for the first time ever there was snow on the ground in all 50 states?
Even 50? I didn't know about Hawaii.
Me and my wife were arguing about this earlier. I'm like, there was snow on the ground in Hawaii, in the mountains, In
the mountains, yep. In the mountains of Hawaii, there were, because the newspaper reported 49. Yeah. And then our researcher said, wait a minute, there's got to be snow on the top of the mountains in Hawaii. And he called, and then he actually did a Google Earth view of Hawaii and found snow on top of one of the mountains.
I thought that too when they said that, that Hawaii was the only one. And I thought, no, wait, I've been there, and I don't remember seeing snow, but I do remember seeing snow tops on the peaks. Just in some of the brochures of, the bicycle trips and things like that you can take.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that mountain that has bicycle trips, I think, had the snow. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
And so
I'm not strong enough to do that bike trip. They'd want you to do it at dawn so you can see over the volcano as the sun comes up. And I'm thinking, if I did that, I wouldn't be seeing anything at that time.
We'd have to start at 3 to get me up there by dawn.
You'd have to start 2 days
I went up in a
before.
van when I was there.
There you go. Now, Tim, you got to tell me, you know, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with all the stories and stuff of Ripley's because, I mean, you're in the position where you're just surrounded by it. What are your favorite stories?
Oh man, I have a bunch of them. You know, we have Ripley's goes way beyond just the books that we do or just the TV show. In fact, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they thought they didn't have any idea that we did books or that we had the TV or that we had anything but the TV show.
Yeah,
that was all. But you know, in fact, Ripley's is now our daily cartoon strip still runs. It's in 200 newspapers in 42 countries. We have the TV show now with Dean Cain still in syndication. They're not producing new ones anymore. But we also have 80-plus attractions in 13 countries. We have 31 of those are, believe it or not, museums. But then we also have 2 world-class aquariums.
I love
one
the
in Myrtle.
aquariums.
Yeah, one in Myrtle Beach and one in Gatlinburg. We're looking to build another one up in Toronto. We're going through the process of trying to put one up there. And then we have wax museums. We have haunted adventure museums, year-round haunted homes. And plus we still sell over 1 million books a year. And plus now we've got the radio show where Paramount's working on a new film. Hopefully they'll start filming next year, starring Jim Carrey as Robert Ripley.
Wow.
And so we are a very, very, very big company out there. Very few people realize that. So there's a lot more. And we own a big lodge up in Niagara Falls, Canada, the Great Wolf Lodge. We own the Canadian rights for that franchise. And, you know, it's 406 rooms with a 100,000 square foot indoor water park. And so we're into virtually everything. So when you say stories, I could be telling you stories all around, but I think you want to talk about the believe it or not stuff.
Oh,
and I think I like the believe it or not side of the company the best. I mean, that's the roots. That's kind of what I grew up reading, the little paperback books about things. And, you know, as a reluctant reader myself in my teens, Ripley was about my only showcase and my only window to the world. And it was so cool to be able to experience all these stories that I was reading as a child about the world around me. And, you know, that was way before the Internet. And, you know, I never listened to radio, of course, as a kid other than for the top 40 music. But so I grew fond of certain areas of Ripley as I was growing up. And, you know, one thing, of course, I like the shrunken head aspect. I mean, that's a very interesting whole thing. When you go into a room, you almost feel, you know, it's almost paranormal when you walk in. You feel these eyes looking at you, and you know these bodies, these heads were once human, and now they're dead, of course, and shrunken. But you know, you have to show them reverence. You really do, because you know our New York Museum, for example, on 42nd Street, has 24 shrunken heads in one gallery.
Wow.
That's the most shrunken heads on display anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And you walk into that room, and there's music playing, and we treat it very, very reverent. And you know, you feel, and then you look at these people, and then you start wondering, God, what was this person when they were alive? So that part, from a totally astonished, believe it or not, I think attracts me the most. And the thing I'm most delighted about Ripley's is the funky artwork. You know, people come up with all kinds of mediums to create things. We have, for example, an Obama made out of 17,000 gumballs. That's a 6 foot by 6 foot portrait of Obama made out of 17,000 gumballs.
You know, there's a joke in there somewhere, but I don't think I'd better say it.
Now behave yourself.
I will.
And there's only eight color gumballs. So the guy that created it had figured out a way for pixelation of all colors just out of 8 different gumballs.
Wow.
And he's also created 4 or 5 other portraits for us out of that. We have the Mona Lisa made out of burnt toast, 42 slices of bread that were created by a Japanese artist. And what he does is he pictures what this is going to look like and puts aluminum foil on certain pieces of the bread and bakes them in a horizontal oven and pulls them out at certain times and puts them all together, and voila, there's the Mona Lisa. And it's beautiful. You would never know that it was made out of toast. Then we have a 6-foot-tall, out at our Hollywood Museum, we have a 6-foot-tall portrait of John Wayne made out of laundry lint. And that's really cool, too, because the girl that makes these does not dye the lint or whatever. She just has these buckets that all of her friends send her laundry lint, and she goes around and collects them from the laundromats. And then she sorts them and puts a gray here and a darker gray here and red here. And she actually creates these portraits out of the color of laundry lint that comes right out of the dryer.
Wow.
Now, I know we're going to the one I went to in Williamsburg, which I was telling you was the only one I've ever been to, which was just, the whole thing was just fun. The one I found I loved the most art-wise was and I have no idea how they do it, art on rice. On just pieces of rice. And I mean, I'm talking full-colored, nothing really. I mean, I think one of them had a Disney character on it. No idea how they do it.
I've watched them do that. I've had it.
I still don't know how they do it. I've watched them do it too, and it's just like I can't think because I mean, just the motor skills needed for it is just amazing.
Oh, and we have like the Lord's Prayer on the point of a pin or of a straight pin. On the head of a pin, we have the entire Lord's Prayer written without a mistake. So I mean, can you imagine the steadiness of your hand to do that? And we have one guy, Enrico Ramos, who is a Mexican artist, lives in Mexico City. He creates all kinds of artwork for us, and he has like the picture of all the presidents on the back of houseflies he's painted.
What?
And he's created...
Why would you pick houseflies first?
Well, he's also got one of the most beautiful pictures of the Last Supper I've ever seen painted on cobwebs. He's taken spider cobwebs and have mushed them together and created a basis to create. I mean, the guy does everything just really, really weird. So, yeah, the miniature stuff is always very popular at our museum.
Now, how do you find these people?
Well, a lot of times they'll find us. Because they know that we like this kind of stuff. And we have a combination of, like on our website, ripleys.com, we have a submission form, and you can click on that and email us photos or just write us a note or send us a video or whatever. And then we look at every one of those as they come in and post a lot of them on our website. We use a lot of them in our books. Our books come out. We put out an annual book every August, and the second week of August. And these are oversized coffee table-sized books. A lot of your listeners, as well as myself, grew up with these little paperback books with the little pen and ink drawings like you see in a daily cartoon.
Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, and you'd get these at the school fairs, the book fairs, and put them in your back pocket for 75 cents. But we now, and we'll be coming out with our 7th one this fall, or in August, these are oversized coffee table-sized books, and each one has like over 500 color photographs, over 2,500 believe it or nots in it. So that means every year we have to come up with 2,500, believe it or not, just for the book alone. Plus, we do daily cartoons 6 days a week with 3 cartoons, which would be 18, and then 4 on Sundays. So that's 22 a week we have to come up. So that's 100 additional ones every month we have to come up.
Now, do you
with.
ever collect those in a book? Because I would buy that.
The
Just
cartoon.
Believe It or Not.
The cartoons, the daily cartoons.
It's funny you bring that up because we are thinking about doing an annual. That's what Ripley himself used to do. It used to be kind of an amalgam of all of his favorite cartoons of the year he would put together in his yearly book. And we stopped doing that, but we've been thinking about doing it. Our artist now, John Graziano, is only the fifth person to ever draw the cartoon, including Ripley himself. And Ripley died in 1949.
Wow.
So you can imagine and John is amazing. He's copied Ripley's style and has made it his own, and he's really great. So we are thinking very seriously, and that's considered one of our publishing ventures for next year.
Oh, now we need to take a break, but I do have, when we get back, I do want to ask you this question. I'll let you think about it for a second. Asked by NY Lily in the chat room, what did you find the hardest to believe? So,
Good question.
Yeah, so it might take you a second to think of that. I know there's a lot of things I found hard to believe in there, but
does it have to be concerned with Ripley's?
You know,
boy, now you're really opening the door.
That's opening up. Let's just say Ripley's, because in life, oh man, just so much stuff. But we'll be right back on Whispers with WKKX and UPR and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Gotta free my mind, get you out of sight. Shh. Listen, I hear dead people.
Shut up, you idiot. That's just Nick, Jordan, and Lola with Whispers Radio. Brought to you by the Market House in Elm Grove. Tune into Whispers Radio every Monday night at 6 p.m. on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog.
And welcome back to Whispers on AM 1600 WKKX and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I'm Nick, she's Lola, and out in the nether regions of the Ohio County is Jordan.
Hey, everybody. I'm down here live at the Market House Bar and Grill in Kruger Street in Elm Grove. In case you've been living under a rock, we got a Monday night special when we're here. The Whispers special, a bucket of beer and 8 wings for $10. $1 domestics, $2 well drinks. While the weather's good, get out here. We got plenty of time and plenty of room for you to come and enjoy yourself before the storm hits. Right, fellers?
There you go. So we're still. Is Tim? You still there with us?
I am. I'm thinking that going to a bar is a great place if you're going to get snowed in.
My sentiments exactly.
You know, where everybody knows your name.
Dun, 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 dun.
There's another Believe It or Not for you. Jordan can sing.
Not.
Can he?
Can't.
Well, believe it or not, he thinks he can.
Yeah. But, you know, the difference here is the fact that believe it or not, as defined by Ripley, are all true.
Ah.
Yeah, and, you know, he himself is really credited for being the first person to ever say that truth is stranger than fiction.
Now, Tim, I got
True.
a question along those lines. I know I've been to 2 museums. I've been in the one in Williamsburg and the one in Myrtle Beach. And I've noticed some of the stuff in the museums are the same. And I was wondering if, like the shrunken heads, for instance, how many, like, let's say you said you got 24 heads in one museum, and I know there's one in each of those. Do you really have just like a collection of like hundreds of shrunken heads?
Shrunken heads we have, we have clearly 150 or more. And we just bought 5 last year. A lot of people are, during this economy, diversing their collections. But, yeah, everything is real. You do see some things that you see twice, but, you know, like I say, it's hard to have 2 of a one-of-a-kind item. So
do you
the
use
thing that
replicas too?
We like, but we always say this is a replica of something, like the certain mammoth bones exhibit that we really like that show a good example of the size of mammoth. We've only got one real one, which we keep in our warehouse, and we make molds and create wax figures off of those. Okay. So what we say, this replica of a mammoth bone was discovered in blah, 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 blah type of thing. So we let you know on stuff like that. And then some things are so obviously not real, like the Chineseman with his head, with a hole drilled in his head with a candle sticking out the top. That's an exhibit. I mean, this guy was...
That's not a real head? What? You're crushing me, Tim.
I know, but the story is real. I mean, this guy actually lived in Shanghai and did this. So, and Robert Wadlow, the 8'11" guy, the tallest man to ever live, we have wax figures of him, and Howard Hughes, the big fat guy, Howard Hudson, I'm sorry, the big fat guy, the fattest man to ever live. Those are obviously duplicates, but when it comes to shrunken heads, we won't even sell fake shrunken heads in our gift shops. Because we don't want people to think that, gee, I just bought one just like the one that I saw. So we don't have those. And then in our stocks and bonds room, which is really an amazing collection of 14th and 15th century humiliation and torture devices from mostly from Europe. Those are all real.
Really?
Unless we've got, they all are real. So we might have, for example, 42 different types of spiked collars that were used, for example, or chastity belts are big collectibles for us. We will have a chastity belt and a spiked collar in each museum, but they're slightly different than one that you might see at a different museum.
So it's not just copies and copies and copies of the same thing.
Exactly. Like you said, we have all these shrunken heads. We've got the miniature devices that were made and so forth. And we go to a lot of effort and expense every year to make sure that our things are real and genuine and authentic. Luckily, Ripley had to go through a lot of effort, and he would never exhibit anything or write about anything unless he was sure he was 100% right.
Huh.
And
now, what about the mermaid, the Fiji mermaid?
Yeah. They, of course, those aren't real, and we say that, and we present them as one of the greatest hoaxes of all times, because Barnum in his 1850s dime museums in New York City had the Fiji mermaid, which is the head of a monkey and the body of a fish glued together. And he put it behind glass and told everybody that this was the only, Fiji mermaid that was ever found. And then somebody discovered, hey, this is a hoax. So Barnum says, you're right, but sure fooled people for a long time. Then he presented it himself as a hoax, and more people came to see what kind of an item it must have been to fool so many people for so long. And it was brilliant.
I know when I first went, that's what I went there looking for.
We've got the original Fiji mermaid that Barnum had, plus we picked up, they were sold in the islands, Fiji Islands, as souvenirs for many, many years in the 30s and 40s. And we were able to pick up a lot of the authentic, quote-unquote, souvenirs that were used. But we present them when we show them, because it's such a cool story. We present them as a hoax.
Now, before the break, I asked you, what have you found the hardest to believe?
I find that man's inhumanity to man, as expressed through torture devices, is probably what I find hardest to believe. And it's not just the item that's hard to believe, but it's the fact that they were very common. And as I look at them now, knowing, for example, the Iron Maiden, not the band, but the
what
Iron
a torture
Maiden
device, that band.
Yeah, really, and they are torture. But I can't say that. Sorry,
I'm
guys.
sorry.
If they're, I'm sure they listen to your show. So,
we are pretty popular.
Yeah, really. That's what I've heard. The torture device that I think most gets to me is the Iron Maiden, and that is an upright, I guess, coffin in the shape of a person. And what they would do is they would put you in this, and they would slam the door shut, and the face part of it was open, so the person could still see out. But what they would do is they would have 13 spikes in the door, and these spikes were positioned to go through you at the crucial points, like your heart, your lungs, your stomachs, your neck. And so, and these were used mostly to kill heretics. And what they would do is they would give you one last opportunity to recant or to admit that you're a heretic. They would put you in this thing, strap you in, and say, we're going to slam this door unless you confess. And a lot of people didn't confess, and they slammed the door. And, they scream, holler, and they'd be dangling from a bridge. They would have a rope, and they would put it out over a bridge, pull a rope, the door would open, and the body would fall into the river, and it would go on down the river. Wow. And that's how they disposed of it. And the one, for example, we have 3 original Iron Maidens.
No way.
And, you were saying what's hard to believe is, you look at this thing on display, but then you realize that when we bought this several years ago, we did DNA testing on it and found out that there was 13 different bloods in it.
Wow.
So that means that 13 people were killed in this device that's sitting in front of me. And that really humbles you, man, and you start shaking your head. And then you look around at all these other devices that man created to torture other people. And that's what I really find hard to believe.
Now, what other kind of torture devices does Ripley have on display?
Well, we have definitely the spiked collars. We show back in Asia in the 13th and 14th century, what they would do is, again, somebody that they caught stealing or whatever. And most of the torture devices weren't because you admitted you did something. It was because they know you did it, and they were trying to get you to admit it. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Because, of course, that's how that works.
Yeah, that was torture. Now, there was death equipment, like the Iron Maiden, which was used both to coerce you into telling the truth and admitting something and killing you. And the same way with the stovepipe, what they would do is they would have you sit on this big box, steel box, with a big pipe coming up through the middle, like a stovepipe, like a chimney. And they would have you straddle it with your legs and your arms, and they would handcuff you or tie you on the far side. So there was no way you were going to be able to get off of this thing. And they would start a fire in it, and they would say, okay, now, did you do this? No. And so another log on it. And all while you were denying it, the fire would keep getting hotter, the box, and sometimes the stovepipe got red hot, and it would just fry you.
Wow.
And it's just, things like that I just shake to even think about.
Do you guys have one of those in a Ripley?
We do, and we have some replicas showing with wax figures hugging this box, showing you how they were done. And now the fun side, I guess you can say, is the humiliation devices, and the fun, yeah, the fun. Sometimes it's fun to humiliate and be humiliated, but one thing that I really found out in the 14th century, it did not pay to be a bad musician. Because what they would do is if you were a bad musician and insisted on playing in the public, they would humiliate you. And I'm not privately, but publicly. And what they would do is this was like a cage over your head and over your shoulders with an instrument that looked like a clarinet that stuck straight out. It was made out of metal, but it was stuck straight out. And what they would do is put this over your head, lock it around your head, and then put your fingers in little finger locks on like you were playing this instrument. and they made you walk around town for like a week. and people would look at you and immediately know that you were a bad musician because you were wearing this thing, hoping that you would never play that instrument again. And I find that so funny that they would
Keep that in mind, Jordan.
That's because Jordan's a musician. So can I get a copy of this from Ripley?
Yeah, we'll send you some schematics.
All right.
Now, did most of these devices come from Europe, or where do they most originate from?
Mostly from Europe, many from Eastern Europe. Okay. And so we've got a great big collection of those, and I think our collection of torture and humiliation devices are second only to our collection of African gods and goddesses that have been carved, and fertility cycles and fertility statues and fertility dolls. We've got a huge collection of those.
Speaking of Eastern Europe, vampires. I think one of the things I noticed in there were the vampire eradication kits, and there are several other kits like that for different ghosts or whatever. How many of those do you have, and are those authentic?
We have things called the vampire killing kits.
Okay.
And back in the 1800s, even before Bram Stoker did when he wrote about Dracula in the 1890s. Yeah. Prior to that, there were a lot of stories about Eastern Europe, about the bloodsuckers and so forth. And so a Dr. Bloomberger out of Boston came up with the idea. Well, we don't know if he's the one that came up with the ideas, but he is the one that's got his name on a lot of these. He created a vampire killing kit that served two purposes. One was to scare the vampire away, and two, if you couldn't scare him away, how to kill him. And in this, it was a beautiful box. It was built as a box, and you open it up, and to scare him away, of course, you had the Bible, you had the cross, you had the garlic, you had the holy water, and then to kill him, you had a stake with a little hammer, you had a revolver with a silver bullet in it.
You're ready for anything.
Yeah, ready for anything. And these were sold to mail order, and people going into Eastern Europe in the 1800s and even into the 1900s, these were being sold, as far as we know, right up until 1930s. And since then, there's been a lot of duplicates made, a lot of knockoffs. But as far as we have, I think we have 46 of them, and we have one of them in virtually every one of our museums. And right now they're very hot with all the vampire stuff. So a lot of journalists and a lot of people want to come in just to see what a vampire killing kit's all about.
Well, I don't know if it works on the glittery vampires of today's media.
Well, in 2 weeks we have a store, our Ripley Radio, which we call the Ripley Oddcast, as opposed to the podcast. And we interview two people about vampires. The whole show is dedicated to vampires. And one of them, J.M. Dixon, who wrote a book, a field guide to vampires, it's called, he actually claims to be a vampire and says that there's vampires walking amongst us wherever you go. And the big difference is that so many people think vampires only feed on energy or feed on blood. But in fact, the reason they eat blood is to gain energy. So energy can also be gotten through psychic energy. So people just kind of suck the energy out of you, and that's how they feed their vampirism. And it's amazing to hear this guy talk, and I saw a show on History Channel over the weekend about pretty much the same thing, that there are lots of vampires living amongst us today.
Now, if we want to listen to this show, how do we log in and
you
listen?
can go to Ripley's.com, and then you'll see an icon there called the Ripley Oddcast, and click on it. And it's an hour show weekly. We're called the Ripley Oddcast, an on-demand oddcast, Ripley Radio. And we are broadcast every week from our own site as well as from webtalkradio.net. Okay. And so it's a fun show. We have a lot of fun. We 2 or 3 interviews on people all the time, and last week we did a big show on tattooed ladies. Talked to 3 women who are virtually their whole bodies are tattooed, and 2 of them happen to be sideshow entertainers who also swallow swords and eat fire.
Well, there you go.
we
that
won the
right there is how you make
and
a show.
then this week, in honor of Valentine's Day, we had this very simple thing, or last week I should say, a very simple show on strange love, and I interviewed a guy that had been married 98 times to the same woman.
Oh.
Wow.
And I asked him why, and he said, because I enjoy the honeymoon.
Wow.
I don't even have words for that.
I was gonna say,
You'd
I'm
think the man would make up,
speechless.
figure he's made a mistake about 52 times, I would think.
Now, did he marry anybody else in between, or?
Who had time?
Yeah, I was going to say, did he have time, or?
Well, it was funny. His wife was on the other line when we were interviewing, and he said, "Yeah, well, the first time I got married, we got married, was in May 19, whatever." And she says, "That was June."
Well, now we know why they
Now
were
we
married
know.
90-some times.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Makes so, he goes along with it.
But now they've set the world record, and they just want to continue doing it. They're going to this summer. They're going to be married for the 100th time on our July 4th broadcast.
There we go.
Oh, romance
Yeah.
blossoms. in many
Well,
different
Tim,
ways.
we're really out of time. So
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you very
Oh,
much.
yes.
We got your website and all that kind of good stuff all linked up to our website, whispersradio.com, so
Fabulous.
that our listeners can go find you and everything that you're about and what you guys do.
Well, thanks for letting me talk about my favorite subject.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
a
we'll
pleasure.
have you back on.
Thank you for talking about our favorite subject.
All righty, guys.
Hey, have a good one.
You too.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
Be
everybody,
safe.
we'll be right back. It's time for the news and CNN, and you're listening to Whispers Radio. See you after a bit.
Now it's time for Whispers, your number one source for all things paranormal, with your hosts, Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, and produced by the lovely Lola Miller. Whispers is brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours. At the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville, unforgettable, historical, educational.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I'm Jordan Klein here live at the Market House Grill in Elm Grove. Back in the studio, we got Nick Queen, his little buddy Evan, and the lovely, lovely Lola Miller.
Now, why do I have to be little buddy Evan?
Because with Nick is always his Evan.
I know you are like twice my age, but still.
Wow. I was remembering, Jordan, when we were down in Williamsburg, the tunnel we went through to get out of the Ripley's. Remember the one where the wall was moving and you tried to walk in?
Yeah, it was like a.
We were all three
bridge.
falling over like we were drunk.
It was like a steady bridge, and like it was like a spinning tunnel we were walking through.
Uh-huh.
It had all like it was backlit, and it was just spinning and spinning and spinning, and it took us forever to walk across it. And we were there for like 20 minutes to a half hour because we were the only people in the museum, just going back and forth over the bridge.
Yeah, I think
because we were
the
laughing our
person,
butts off.
the person there is probably like, "My Lord, when are they going to leave?" Because we would all go like, "Okay, go to the other side, try to walk without touching the rails," and we'd fall over and laugh. And
Now, where is the closest Ripley's to us?
Oh, jeez, I have no clue.
I don't know. There's not one in Pittsburgh. Maybe Columbus. I'm gonna have to look that up. That's a good question.
Well, if on the eastern side of the country, if it's Gatlinburg or Myrtle Beach, Gatlinburg would be closer.
Yeah,
It's
well,
in
Williamsburg's
Tennessee.
not too far either. So,
And New York.
New York,
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
there
New
you
York,
go.
New
hours
York.
away.
There's
6 hours.
some all over the place. You can find them. So it looks like we have our next guest, Jordan, which is Kyle Lovern. He's a nationally recognized UFO expert. Written 2 books on UFOs in Appalachia. Kyle, are you with us?
I'm here.
Now you're from, and this was amazing to me. You're from the area where I grew up, born, raised, and grew up. I have family still down there, which is Mingo County.
Exactly.
How is Mingo right now? Is it you got snow on the ground there?
Oh, we got a little, not as much as we were supposed to get, but I think we're going to get some more tonight. So, typical, it's been a real rough winter.
Yeah, no, my dad down there, I was supposed to go down for Christmas, me and my wife, and we were there, I think Christmas is on, Wednesday or Thursday of the week, and we were looking Tuesday leaving, and I think Monday night, or Monday, I had a call, and they're like, don't come, there's already a foot on the ground, and I didn't really hear back from them for the next 2 weeks, and it was, so much snow. I think they ended up getting like 4 feet of snow down there or something, and ever since then, it's been kind of rough, I hear.
Yeah, it's been a rough winter. We had a lot of snow and a lot of power outages at that time. It was a big, heavy, wet snow right before Christmas, so a little rough on some of the people out in the rural areas.
Oh yeah, it's so now I mean, being from southern West Virginia, the Appalachia, you wouldn't think too much, and UFO expert and getting into UFOs in the area. Are there a lot of UFO sightings in that area?
After doing my research and being interested in this for years, I have found out that there was a lot of sightings down in this neck of the woods, but in all throughout Appalachia. And West Virginia has had a lot of sightings over the years. I mean, if you go back and some of the archives and some of the newspapers, you'll see stories from different places. And, there's been a couple real famous sightings. One of the most famous in the early 50s when UFOs really started coming into the forefront in the national media was the Flatwoods Monster.
Mm-hmm.
You might have heard about that. And, of course, in the 60s you had the Mothman, which some people associated that with UFOs, too.
Yeah, so be careful. Jordan's a huge Mothman fan. We mentioned Mothman. He'll try to talk about it the entire hour.
Yeah.
So
I actually had one Mothman story in my first book, but it was from Mingo County.
Oh, really?
A lady said that she saw the Mothman here. Her and I think it was some of her relatives in the mid-'60s, yeah. So,
now, what part of Mingo County was that?
Around Del Barton and Raglan, if you're familiar with that area.
Oh, yeah, I actually lived in Del Barton for probably about 6 years, so... Well, so Mothman paid a visit to my area. See, there we go. I'm happy. Now, you were a journalist in Williamson, West Virginia, right?
Yeah, I worked at the Williamson Daily News, which you might be familiar with that newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty popular paper back in its day. Of course, like a lot of papers, it's gone downhill somewhat. But most recently, I was an editor for the West Virginia Standard, which had 5 weekly papers in Logan, Boone, Lincoln, Putnam, and Cabell County. But those also went out of business. But I've also worked in the radio business, too, over the years here in the Williamson, Late One area. I was a news and sports director and DJ, did a little bit of everything in that business also. So.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Now, how exactly did you get into UFOs?
Well, it's just something I was always interested in since I was a youngster. I had a sighting myself when I was just a little kid with my family, sitting on our front porch. We grew up just outside of Williamson, a little town called Nolan. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And we saw 3 UFOs one summer evening.
Oh, wow.
While we were sitting on our front porch, just hovering, coming from Kentucky toward West Virginia. We lived right on the border there. They were treetop level, right over the top of the mountain, not far from our house, and saw them for a little while before they just took off or disappeared in an instant. And I think that sort of piqued my interest at a young age, and then I continued to, anytime there was UFOs on TV or in the media, I paid attention to it. When I was in high school, there was a massive UFO flap, or some people call it a wave, in the autumn of 1973. People were seeing UFOs all across the East Coast, including West Virginia. And I had another sighting then with a couple of neighbors. So I continued to be interested in it. And over the years when I was a journalist, I continued to pay attention to it. And I wrote for a UFO magazine in the 90s, just on a freelance basis, and did a few little interviews. So I collected some stories. And then the last newspaper I was working at, I worked with a gentleman, his name's Keith Davis, and he also has a small publishing company. And I told him I had collected a lot of stories, and I thought about writing a book, UFO cases in Appalachia. And he had published a couple of ghost story books that had done pretty well, and he said, well, I think, that might do okay, give me a manuscript, and we'll look at it, and we'll go from there. And I put it together, and he did publish the first book, and it did pretty well. And once my name got out there, I started getting contacted by a lot of other people with more stories, and thus I came out with Volume 2. And now that this has been out, and I've been getting on a lot of radio shows and podcasts like yours, and I was on Coast to Coast a couple months ago, which got a lot of mileage from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my own website now. I've just been inundated with more stories, and, really from different parts of the country, but people are definitely from Appalachia, as far away now as Mississippi and Tennessee and other places have contacted me wanting to share their story with me. My first book was all West Virginia. The second one, I started branching out and getting into Kentucky and Virginia, other places.
Now, just so you know, if you don't mind talking just a little bit louder, I know Jordan's having a little bit of trouble hearing you. He's out on remote right now. So,
okay.
If you don't mind.
No problem.
If you can, if I don't answer anything you say or you can't hear my questions, it's because I'm having a little bit difficulty hearing what you're saying. I'm trying to follow through though.
Now, did you hear about the Mothman, Jordan?
No, I didn't.
Okay, he said there was a Mothman sighting in Mingo County.
In Mingo County, no way.
Yeah, that was back in the 60s. Someone shared their story with me on my first book. And I have another guy that told me that he had a Mothman sighting. He's a local, he's in the police force, and it was when he was a little kid. I haven't quite interviewed him yet. We just touched base, but I'm going to try to talk to him and see what he has to say. Maybe for my next book, but that interested me. That was close to Maitland, West Virginia, where he was talking about. So
now, do you categorize that with the alien sightings?
Pardon?
Do you take your Mothman sightings and put them in the same grouping as your UFO sightings?
Yeah, I do. Only because I just think they've been linked together in the past. Some people thought, around Point Pleasant, after they saw the Mothman, there was a lot of UFO sightings.
Oh yeah.
So I sort of linked them together. That's the only two Mothman stories that I've had. I thought it was rather interesting, though. I'm like Mr. King there. I'd never heard of one in Mingo County, so I thought this is good. I got to include it. And then this gentleman that I'm planning to interview here in the next few weeks said he saw one when he was just a kid one summer evening playing with some friends up just south of Maitland. So I want to hear what he has to say. He's a pretty credible witness. Like I say, he works on a police force here. So
now I got a question with your findings. Do you plan on continuing your volumes? Is that something that you really want to look into?
Change the title of this next book. I don't want to just continue doing the Volume 1 and the Volume 2 kind of thing. Basically, because I got the advice from my publisher, he thought it would be good to do it this way. But since we both talked and agreed to maybe change the title of my third book, so I'm not exactly sure what my title is going to be yet, but I have already started working on it. So, but like I said, I've got a lot of good stories that have come in, and I really think I've got a lot of good stories in both of these books, but the second one was, I think, a little better.
Awesome.
Now, when I was talking to you, setting up the interview, you mentioned there was a sighting in Gilbert, which is the town where I kind of grew up around. And I have to ask, can you kind of tell the story of that?
I sure can. In fact, I knew you'd probably ask me that because I remember you talking about being from Gilbert and still having family over there. So
oh yeah.
I marked it here in the book, so I have it ready. This happened again, it was back in 1973 when there was a lot of sightings in the late summer, early fall across the U.S. But looks like Gilbert had a sighting too, and it actually made the local newspaper because as I was doing some research, I ran across it, and it was in the Williamson Daily News, so it must have happened.
Wow.
But in fact, the person that reported it was a police chief over there at Gilbert at the time. His name was Charles Sparks. And
now, do you get a lot from police officers?
I get a few. I do like to have credible witnesses. So, you know, if I can get a police officer or someone like that to go on record, I really love it because I feel like they're credible witnesses. You know, these guys have been trained and they have nothing to gain from their, you know, from lying or just making up a story. And I really feel like that everybody I've included in my story so far have been real credible witnesses. I mean, I've had retired ministers contact me and former military people. And, you know, I'll get into that a little later because there's a gentleman from Milton, West Virginia that just contacted me a couple weeks ago. He's a retired minister. He's 75 years old now, and he's really been interested in it for years like I have. But he had two real good sightings back. One was in the 60s and one in the 70s, but we'll get into that later. I want to get back to the Gilbert story. Like I say, it was a chief, his name was Charles Sparks. Your family may know him or have heard of him. But
I have to ask.
Yeah, and apparently he was out on patrol and he came up on a large group of people just outside of a restaurant in Gilbert, and they were all looking up in the sky and were pointing, and he stopped his car and got out, and he also was astonished to see a UFO. That's what everybody was looking at. And, I mean, traffic was stopping, and several people were just standing there looking up at this object that was described as it was round in shape and silvery gray. And it was had a stationary white light on it, and it was just hovering there. And then I think the white light changed to different colors, yellow and blue, and it moved on in a westerly direction. And again, like I say, this was in an old archive that I found in the Williamson Daily News. So yeah, there was a sighting in Gilbert, and in fact, I got a lead on another story from a guy over there that I'm going to try to get a hold of. That may have had a recent sighting over in that Gilbert area, or
really?
Gilbert Creek. Yeah, haven't ran him down yet, but I got a name, and I'm hoping to sound like a good story. At least
I bet you $20 his last name's Klein.
But you know, I think a lot of people have seen things, but a lot of them don't say anything about it, especially back in the 50s, 60s, even 70s. One, they didn't know who to talk to. Two, they were afraid of what people would say because of the stereotype. You know, everybody think, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy. I think that's changed now. We've gotten past that. We're into a new century and everything. But I think the biggest is just nobody really knew who to talk to or contact. I mean, they didn't know about MUFON or the National UFO Reporting Center or some of these organizations. And now with the Internet and things like that, people do have more access to agencies like that to report them to. You know, they may have called the local police station and, you know, they probably get laughed at. So, you know, that's changed, though. And now that my name's out there, I think a lot of people are contacting me, especially in Appalachia. If they've got a sighting, they have somebody they want to talk to that they know will take them serious and won't laugh at them and will report it. But there's hardly a day goes by if I'm out somewhere, somebody don't stop and they'll tell me about a story, that a sighting they had, or maybe a family member that shared a story with them. You know, it's amazing. You know, I'll just be out shopping and somebody will say, hey, I saw your book, and hey, I saw something back there, you know, in 1980 or whatever. It's just amazing. And of course now, like I say, with my website, I get a lot of comments on there from people who have had sightings.
Well, I want to remind everybody, if you got a story you'd like to share, number's 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. Right now we're kind of focusing on stories on the Appalachian Mountains, what's that, PA, Western Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, that area.
Exactly, yeah, Tennessee. Of course, the Appalachian Mountains go all the way down into Tennessee, actually even to Mississippi and Georgia.
Now, Kyle, since you pretty much have a small area you focus on, do you notice that a lot of the stories have the same, I guess, design and shape to the UFOs, or do those vary a lot?
That's a good question. They actually do vary. Of course, it seemed like some of the older stories, if somebody shares something with me from maybe the 60s, that their sighting was the typical disc-shaped or round UFO. But, you know, I've had some that have been described as triangular-shaped, which, of course, you've seen more and more of that across the United States and UFOs. Some are maybe more round or orb-shaped. It varies. But the disc shape's still probably the most popular, and then probably would be the triangular shape.
Now, do you believe all these to be actual alien crafts, or do you think some of them might be government vehicles? Or
I think in some cases they may be mistaken. It could be experimental government, the Air Force maybe when the stealth first came out or something like that. But I think in a lot of these cases, the way they describe how these ships or objects were flying, there's no way. We just don't have things that can do that. I mean, we don't have planes that hover in one spot
right.
and take off as fast as these do, and they don't make any sound. They're not a helicopter, because if there's a helicopter close by, you can hear it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, can you describe the ones that you have apparently seen?
The ones I saw?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, like I say, we saw three in sort of a formation. It looked like one in front, two following behind, and those were around cylindrical type, and they were glowing. It wasn't quite dark. It was dusk, I guess, or close to dusk. And like I say, in the summer. It was probably like in July. And they took off after we saw them for a few minutes. I don't know exactly. It's been a while. So I was, like I say, I was a kid, but they took off so quick they were just gone in the instant. The other one I saw in '73 was smaller, but it was hovering on the mountain above my the neighborhood where I grew up, and it had different blinking lights. It was small. I would say it was more of a hovercraft or maybe something sit down from a larger ship if it was a UFO. I'm sure it wasn't a plane or a helicopter, and my neighbors agreed with me at the time. And again, I was a little older then, and I was in my teenage years, so had more of a view of it and more of an adult mind, I guess you would say. But I remember them both like they were yesterday. I think a lot of people agree once they see a UFO, it stays with them the rest of their life. It just changes the way they think.
Right, Lo?
Lola has her own story about the UFOs she saw, I believe, in Florida. And because myself and Jordan, we've never seen one. I'd love to see one, but it's it's not something. I guess I don't know if I'll ever see one. It's
You never know. I mean, like one guy told me, he said, I think a lot of people just don't look up. He said,
I tell you what, there was one time
where he was out hunting when he saw one. And something caught his attention, but I think a lot of people, if they're driving down the road, they're not necessarily looking up, and that may be a good thing, but, I have a lot of people that say, hey, I never believed until I had a sighting, I saw something one night, or even daytime sightings.
Yeah, there was one time that Nick and I were driving to the studio, and we were up in Ogilvie Park and looked over, and there was this huge thing just kind of hovering at an angle, going across. We stopped the car, we got out, and it was just like a faraway blimp.
Yeah.
But we
First
were
time I ever
excited.
saw a blimp like that, though. It was amazing, but
we were like, oh my God, look.
You were hoping, huh?
Oh,
if it would have been one,
let me tell you what.
Yeah, it'd have been floored.
It would have been a good show.
Yeah.
I know my only story of ever seeing anything. I was going out to one of my friend's ranches, and out of the corner of the window, we just saw this blue light just shoot off in a direction, and not 2 seconds later, another one followed it.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't say anything at first because I was like, well, maybe I'm just seeing things. Then he kind of looked at me. He's like, did you see that? And I was like, yeah, we were out in the country. So, I mean, it was really dark, and you could really see the lights out there.
Right.
But that's pretty much the only thing I've ever seen. But it was still, to this day, I remember it. So
yeah, and
it wasn't anything big, but I saw something.
It was a UFO. It was an unidentified flying object. You weren't sure what it was, and who knows? I mean, the ones that fascinate me, you probably remember hearing about the Phoenix lights from the late 80s out there that are so huge, and some of them are described as big as 2 or 3 football fields,
Oh, wow.
I had one story like that in my second book up in the Maitland area, and then another one in the first book that, you're familiar with the Tug River here, and they said it was, so huge that it blocked out the stars, and it was, completely from one from the Kentucky side to the West Virginia side. It was right on the border, you know.
Wow.
I know. I mean, I've never seen something like that. I would love to, but, I mean, just imagine how astonished you would be to have a sighting like that.
That would be nice. Mine was, we were down in Florida, and we were on Alligator Alley.
Okay.
And it was in the middle of the night because we were coming back from Key West. So we're headed toward the ocean because we were heading north. And absolutely nothing around us. A pickup truck had blown by, which scared us silly because it had a gun rack. And then we saw Pabst Blue Ribbon cans on the floor or on the ground. But, you know, I thought, well, there's just nobody there. And, you know, there's that big sign. Make sure you've got gas and that your car has water in it because there's absolutely nothing. And just from behind us, straight over us, just this light just blew by. And it was just way too fast to have been even a better, like, drug plane. You know, it just went too fast. And that's what I think I saw. I mean, that it was some type of, well, as you say, a UFO, if you don't know what it is. But,
exactly.
You know, I know what I saw. And my sister saw it too. So.
Yeah, and many times there's multiple witnesses, which I think is always good if somebody else sees it with you or maybe several people. And I think that it adds to the credibility. There's been a lot of sightings in Florida for some reason. You know, you probably heard the Gulf Breeze sighting.
Yeah, we've heard a few stories from the Gulf Breeze.
Pretty popular, and there was a book about that. But it just seems like certain areas have more sightings than others. But I think there have been a lot in Appalachia, as you were asking, but a lot of people just didn't report them, or you know, they didn't make it to the news media or whatever.
Well, you know, you gotta nowadays. Yes, people will come forward, but
Exactly.
even as much as 10 or 15 years ago, people just didn't because you didn't want to be thought of as a kook or that you're crazy or you've done too many drugs in your youth. You know, so I think that's one of the reasons why it seems like there might be more, but actually it's just that more people have become courageous enough to, you know, put it out there.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing them for years, 50s, 60s on through, 70s and on up till now. But more people are coming out. And, you know, you see more documentaries on TV, on legitimate channels like the History Channel and Nat Geo and Discovery. And they've done a lot of, you know, they even got a series, or they had a series on the History Channel, the UFO Hunters. And, you know, Larry King every so often will have some folks on and do interviews about UFO sightings, you know, legitimate news sources and programs that are taking it serious, and I think that's important. And that makes people feel more comfortable when they see that. They're more willing to come out and share their stories.
Right.
Now, do you get a lot of stories from... never mind, we have a call on line one.
Great.
Well, no, it was Barb. She just wanted to know, do you happen to know when the very first documented sighting was?
Wow. Probably the best known sighting, well, when the UFO wave took off was Kenneth Arnold's sightings out in Washington State. Because he was a pilot and he saw several UFOs. And when he reported them and it hit the media, he talked about them being sort of like upside-down plates or saucers.
Yeah.
And that's where the name Flying Saucer came from. And from that point, people started seeing more and more. And then right after that, you had the famous Roswell incident, which, of course, is supposed where a UFO crashed and the government went out and retrieved alien bodies and retrieved the spaceship in two different locations, actually, near Roswell. And from that point, you started seeing more and more. I think you can go back even before the 40s, and every once in a while, you know, I've seen some documentaries where maybe a strange something was seen in the sky back in even the 1800s, but there's not a lot of documentation on it. But I would say really probably in the 40s is when it really started.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, Kyle.
Okay.
Be right back to Whispers on WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPR and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Radio on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 7:37 p.m. I'm Jordan Klein. I'm live at the Market House Grill in Elm Grove on Kruger Street. Back in the booth is Nick, Evan, and the lovely Lola.
Sounds like you are having a lot of fun over there.
It's where I am. There is always a lot of fun. And I don't know why you guys doubt that all the time.
Is that Coca-Cola kicking in?
It's the lack
It's
of
the sugar rush.
It's the lack of empirical evidence.
You guys are jerks. Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. I want to remind everybody that while we are here at the Market House, they have a Whispers special that goes on till 9 o'clock p.m. It's a bucket of beer. That's 4 beers and 8 wings, a pound of wings for $10. And $1 domestic drinks, $2 well drinks, and that goes on until 9 p.m. tonight.
I should have braved the snow and went out there.
Everybody should brave the snow and come out here. And, of course, you can sit with the lovely Jordan Klein, which...
Not as lovely as the lovely Lola.
Not as lovely as the lovely Lola, but, you know, sometimes I just got to make do with what I got, which is myself.
Well, you can borrow my dress next time. That way you might be lovely, too.
Coming here, I don't think that would be good.
All right, well, Kyle, if you're still there after that, you missed probably the first part of the show. Evan, who's sitting in with us today, lost a bet with me about the Super Bowl. He bet on the Colts and lost, and now has to wear a dress to church.
Oh gosh!
So it's going to be fun. We're still waiting to see exactly what dress he goes with and if he wears pumps.
Well, changing the topic totally. With how many UFO stories you get, do you ever get stories about the little green men inside of them?
Not little green men, but gray men. Of course, that seems to be the choice of UFO description of aliens. Of course, there's some folks that say there's some among us that are humanoid that can blend right in, but most of the abduction stories, people describe the small grays, little short, 4 to 5 foot, skinny, thin arms, thin legs, of course the big pear-shaped black eyes. I actually had a good story that I did an interview that'll be coming in my next book from a gentleman here in West Virginia, and he went to a camp, Camp Thomas Lightfoot, which is down around Hinton, West Virginia, and he was a youngster. And he I won't tell a lot about it, but he described a small alien walking into their cabin. They had bunk beds. He was in a top bunk.
Oh, geez.
And it's a really good. It was a really eerie story. I mean, you could tell he was telling the truth. At least he thought he saw something. And after all these years, I mean, that happened in the 60s. He's trying to find some other people that were at the camp with him, counselors and others, to see if anybody else saw it or remember seeing anything. He does remember some counselors talking the next day about seeing a UFO that same night. But it's a pretty creepy story, so, you know.
Now, have you ever had any kind of experience, an abduction experience, or seen an alien yourself?
No, I haven't. Of course, sometimes I think I would like to, but then they always say, be careful what you wish for.
Oh, yeah. Now, see, I'm always afraid if I'm alone by myself at night and I, look up at the sky, I'm scared that if I see one and they're going to know that I saw them and they're going to come down and steal me.
You know, and those are pretty common stories, and a lot of people, thousands, have claimed all over the world that they have been abducted and have been experimented on or examined medically. And who's to say that they're not telling the truth?
Now, do you have any stories in your books about the abductions?
Yeah, somewhat. They don't go into detail like that, but a lot of the stories that people I've talked to have missing time, which I think lends to the aspect that they may have had of an abduction experience because they have seen a UFO, and then the next thing they know, it's 2 hours later, and they're back in the car, they're back in their room, and they have no idea what happened at that time. And, Bud Hopkins, who is also from West Virginia, has written a lot about the abduction phenomena and missing time, and it lends to that theory anyway.
Wow. Now, the Betty and Barney Hill story, theirs was big on the missing time, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's a real famous story. That was from the early 60s up in the White Mountains, up in the Vermont, New Hampshire area there. And my friend Stanton Friedman, which I think you guys have talked to before,
Yeah, we've had him on.
he co-wrote a book about that. That's one of the great early abduction stories, and it brought it sort of to the forefront. Real interesting, though.
Yeah, we had talked about Kathleen Martin also on the show about it specifically, and I can't remember who we also spoke to that was talking about a lot of focus on the dress.
Well, he said that he was abducted, and I guess when Betty was abducted, her dress was missing and she was wearing a shirt. He got abducted around the same time. His shirt was missing and he came back in a dress. Something crazy like that.
Yeah, it was a weird story.
Well, that's my excuse for Sunday.
Yeah. Now, Kyle, the stories that you get, where do a lot of them mostly come from? Because since you are talking about the entire Appalachian region, do they seem to come focus on certain areas? Maybe around military installations, something like that.
It just varies. It seems like a lot of them are, of course, out in rural areas because maybe away from heavily populated areas. But I've had others that were closer to cities. I was telling you about the minister that contacted me about a month ago. Then I talked to him on the phone. He sent me some information, and I plan to meet with him. In fact, I was going to meet with him a couple of Saturdays ago, but we had one of those big snows you were talking about. But again, he had a sighting on his way to church in I think it was 1968, and then again in 1974, another sighting. But he has almost been obsessed with this UFO phenomena since that time. And again, this guy's a minister, no reason to tell lies. And he backed up his second sighting. He sent me some news clippings from that same time that was reported in the Huntington newspaper the next day or two about this. It was similar to the sighting that he had, and really good stories, a credible witness, and very descriptive, and he's got a lot of theories too, of course associating maybe some of the scriptures in the Bible with UFOs, and that's another theory going back to the ancient astronaut theory of Von Däniken. Ezekiel, I'm not a big Bible person, but he describes seeing a wheel within a wheel, fire in the sky, and even four beings coming from a flying object. And a lot of ufologists think that sightings go back that far.
Now, which brings up a good question. What do you think exactly is behind all this? I mean, I think Jordan asked earlier, do you think it was maybe military? What's the purpose that they're, especially in the rural areas, what purpose is behind?
My theory is that they're coming here, and they've been coming for years. They've kept an eye on us. They see how we progressed. Naturally, just like we do, if we go into the jungle, we're taking flora and fauna. We're tagging animals. Same thing when we go into the ocean. We try to look for new species or whatever. I think it's the same thing with them, and I think they've been coming here from wherever. And what's to say that they're not doing the same thing and they haven't been doing it for years? There's even a report now that Buzz Aldrin, one of the astronauts, second man to walk on the moon after Neil Armstrong, has reported that they were followed by UFOs and they were going to the moon. And it makes sense because, it's like once we started experimenting, shooting rockets up into the sky, and then we actually went somewhere else, we went to the moon, if they've been watching us, they're going to see, hey, we've got to keep an eye on these guys down. They're getting closer. And, you've had other astronauts, Edgar Mitchell and Gordon Cooper, come on record now saying that UFOs are real. And, again, you can't get any more credible than those guys.
Yeah.
And like I tell people when I go out and talk to groups, you had two presidents that reported seeing UFOs, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. It's on record. They both reported seeing UFOs.
And go in the Senate, what is his name? Dennis Kucinich also, yeah.
And that came up in the presidential debates last year.
He was very open about it, too.
In my second book, I talk about that because I think we're maybe getting closer to disclosure because so many people like this are coming out on record. And it's going to be harder and harder for the government to keep this secret, what they know.
Yeah.
Fife Symington, who was the governor of Arizona at the time the Phoenix Lights happened. Of course, at first he sort of made fun of it because I think people were starting to panic because that was such a mass sighting over a large metropolitan area. But he came out later and said, "Hey, I saw it myself." And he was talking about it being so big that it blocked out the stars. He's also a former Air Force pilot.
Wow.
So you can't get more credible than that.
Now, we talked about a lot of people being more open to discussing what they've seen. Do you think that maybe they're wanting to be seen more, that they're kind of coming out more? Because we hear a lot more about mass sightings and things like that.
It's very possible, and I would like to think that's what's happening. I'm hoping it is because I'd like for the truth to come out, but, it's just hard to say. I do think that a lot of people talk to me because they do trust me. I'm a small-town reporter, journalist, and they feel comfortable. I don't make fun of them. I make them,
You don't have anything to prove.
Exactly. I make them feel comfortable, and I will listen to their story, and they know that I'm going to listen to it and take it seriously. And I think that has prompted a lot of people to contact me and share their stories with me. And they've got my books, and they like the way that I wrote them, because I sort of write them like a reporter would, and just let them tell the story, and I retell it.
Kyle, we had a phone call. Now, this is like several questions all built into one, so I'll just start at the top. A movie called Fourth Encounter. Have you ever heard of it?
Just came out in November, I think.
Yeah. Is it true? Is it a true documentary, or is it purely all fiction?
That's the one that supposedly happened in Alaska, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's come out that's not true.
Okay.
There was no doctor on record that's a psychiatrist in the movie, and I went to see it myself because naturally I was interested. But it's they've come out and say that this wasn't true. That it was just fiction, but they tried to portray the movie like it really happened.
Okay. Now the second is, back in the early 70s in Reesville, there is a power plant, and some woman heard a ruckus up in her infant's room, went in, the French windows had been sprung open, and there were three talons, claw marks, up the wood siding, in the mud at the base of the window. And have you heard anything about that, and especially about three-toed or three-clawed?
No, that sounds like an interesting story. I haven't heard about that, but I would like to hear more about it. That might be something included in a future book.
All right. Well, that happened back in the 70s, and
in Reesville, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's out there, they want to contact me, let me give them the name of my book, by the way, my website.
Hey, go ahead.
But the books it's called Appalachian Case Study, UFO Sightings, Alien Encounters, and Unexplained Phenomena, Volumes 1 and 2. My website is my name, Kyle Lovern, UFOs.com. That's KYLELOVERN, UFOS.com. So, hey, send me a message on the website, give me your email or your number, and I'll get back with you.
Now, Kyle, we also have those linked up to our website,
whispers021510.mp3.
in case our listeners forget, they can just go to our site, and Nick usually has all the books and everything linked right up there.
The books are linked up. All they have to do is click on it and buy it from Amazon.
I appreciate it, guys.
No problem.
They can do the same. They can click on the books on my website or my publisher's website, which is woodlandpress.com. And so there's several ways they can get the books. I think they'll enjoy them.
Especially you local West Virginians. Support what's going on in your state.
Which I have to ask, we're up in Wheeling, West Virginia, still part of Appalachia.
Oh, yeah.
Any stories from up here? One of the ones we heard was about a UFO crash in Oglebay, which you might be interested
63?
in. No, that was in 50. Wasn't it in 52? Because it was part of the. We had Frank Ficino on several times, and he was talking about the UFO. It was a UFO crash. It was associated with the Flatwood Monster, which he's been researching all that for years.
He's chronicled that for years.
Yeah, and we actually went to the newspaper over here, and we were able to look it up and find it about the Bashful Billy sighting. They even have a picture in the newspaper of this dragon kind of creature with like a barrel suspenders on.
Which is a great picture.
Yeah, we've actually got that on our website. You got to go look that up. But It was interesting. We've actually got all the newspaper articles on there too, if you're interested.
Great. Yeah, I'll look that up.
But have you ever heard about that, or?
Briefly, and read a little bit about it, but I haven't talked to anybody that was actually, part of it or read about it. You guys, I've got one story from Benwood, West Virginia, in my second book. I think that's pretty close to Wheeling.
Oh yeah, we're with stone throw
3
away.
miles.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, pretty good little sighting that was in my second book from a guy that contacted me after he saw the first book. You guys probably have heard about the UFO crash there in Pennsylvania, just not close to West Virginia, back in the mid-'60s there, where the government came in and actually got the UFO and took it away on a truck, a flatbed truck. I'm trying to think of the town right now. It escapes me, but it's a pretty well-known story.
Really?
What happened there in the southern part of Pennsylvania.
Now, do you believe that we have any survivors of those crashes still on U.S. soil?
You talking about like Roswell and?
Yeah.
I think if they may have those bodies somewhere, frozen somewhere, like Area 51 or one of, supposedly they brought the original crash wreckage in
Wright-Patterson.
To Wright-Patterson, exactly, in Ohio, which isn't far from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Kecksburg.
Yeah, Kecksburg. I'm glad you...
Yeah, I was trying to think. I had Stan Gordon. I was trying to remember. I was like, Stan Gordon, I've talked to him about that.
Yeah, Stan Gordon's super guy, and he's sort of an expert on that, but that's pretty close to you guys. That's a pretty interesting story. Although my theory of that one was that might have been a Russian capsule that crashed. It was acorn-shaped, and, one had reportedly entered the atmosphere around the same time.
Yeah, and it's been known that they were actually Russia and Germany were actually working on flying saucer type things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my theory on that. It may be wrong, but.
Now, Kyle, we are out of time.
Okay.
I want to thank you very much for sharing your stories with us and being with us today. I encourage everybody out there, get on the website. Was it Kyle Lovern UFOs?
Yeah.
.com. whispersradio.com. You can link up. You can get his books. Support it. It's local.
Yeah, when we go down to Mingo, we're gonna have to come get together with you.
You guys let me know. We will get together for sure.
Go out for dinner or something.
Lunch or dinner and talk. And I hope anybody out there is listening, if they've got a story to share with me, contact me through my website. I'd love to hear it. I'm trying to collect more stories for another book.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that have stories that are still afraid to share them.
Exactly.
I think this is a good opportunity.
But don't be afraid to share with me. And if they want to use their real name, fine. If they want to change it, I will do that too.
There we go.
That's great. Kyle, thank you very much for joining
Thanks
us
today.
today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We'll have you back. We'll have you back.
Sounds good.
Hey, see ya.
All right.
Well, there you go. Are you still there, Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like local people, or at least somewhat local.
There's a lot more
It's
local
West
than
Virginia.
Frank Vicino, who's down in Florida.
Yeah, but he doesn't have
who's
snow.
talking about our local area.
Yeah, but it's. I think there's all kinds of stories. I wish people would tell more about them because you talk to people and they do say, "Oh, I've seen something" or something like this. I've never heard of the Is it Reesburg? Reesburg. That's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Reesville or something.
Reesville. Yeah, that would be scary. But I wish people would tell more of those kind of stories. I mean, if you want to contact us, we'd love to hear the same story as well.
Oh, we love getting emails on your personal hauntings and sightings.
Which I do need to. We did get an email from somebody saying they did hear something. Remember back when we had the Zozo the Ouija demon person? They sent us an email saying that they did hear something. Because they went back, when we mentioned, they're like, oh, I got to go back and listen. And they said, it's from Doug and Terry, Terry said, I did definitely hear something on the Demon Show. All of a sudden, breaking in and very clearly. There was a really nasty growl sound. I couldn't pick up if there was verbalization or not. It seemed to sound more like a raspy growl, but propelled with clear energy. Very creepy given the subject matter. You guys do a cleansing before and after you do such a subject matter. Question. Maybe a simple meditation or prayer. Do you think that might be a good idea? Take care. It might be.
I cleanse with a nice Coca-Cola. That's Coca-Cola Classic. Brought to you by...
Wasn't that the one that I kind of burped in?
It might be. Let me go back. It was a burp. It may have been a growl.
That dark growl.
Well, no, I don't know. You might have had the dog in that.
The depths of Lowell.
Yeah, the dog might
Yeah,
have been
it
here.
could have been the dog. So I don't know. What I'm going to clean it up again.
Well,
get it. I don't think it sounded like your dog. If so, you need to take the dog away.
Her in when you guys are here.
Yeah.
Well, wait, were you guys?
We were over
We were at the market or here.
That was the show. Remember, the dog wouldn't go into like past a certain area, and
Yeah, she was here that night.
Yeah.
It could have been her.
could have been her. Well, we'll bring it in, and maybe you can decide whether or not it's your
Well,
dog.
I'll tell you, she was here. I had to run a basketball game Saturday, so I brought her. I will not bring her again.
Really?
She
Why?
all over the floor?
No.
I was just asking.
That's just
No,
you.
she did that last time. No, she's just so uncomfortable.
Really?
As long as she's in here with me and playing, like throwing something. But when I would actually have to, when I would do something, she would go out and lay in the, I don't know what you call that, the entranceway or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden she would just start looking up toward the ceiling with that low growl and just kind of going, woo, woo.
Now, have y'all ever had anybody do a reading?
I was
Yeah,
about
there's
to say
people here. There's spirits here.
we need to get
A lot of
Sherry
them.
in.
Yeah,
I think
get
it's time to do a hunt.
Well,
that'd be
Or
fun.
do a little bit of a
we had the
quick
angel ladies
investigation.
in here, and this place is chock full of them.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to have her come in and.
Yeah, you set that up.
All right. Well, real
yeah, we'll
quick,
have to do
since
that.
we're almost out of time, I want to remind everybody: June 30th is our pen trip.
30th?
June 30th.
Why was I thinking it was the 7th?
I have no clue.
Yeah, the 7th's on a Monday, so it's the 30th.
The 30th on a Wednesday. We got Dwayne Claude, special guest, demonologist, doing a presentation. That's brought to you by Grandview Park in Moundsville, and Da Vinci's Pizza, or not Da Vinci's Pizza, DeCarlo's Pizza in Elm Grove is sponsoring our food for the night, and it's going to be a great time. We're still working out the price, but if you're interested, you're really thinking about holding a ticket, email us at whispers1600@gmail.com, and we can put you on the hold list, and that's important.
Yeah, it's going to fill up really quick, especially once we get that out there on the website.
We figured the first
last
night
year
we
it filled
got
up
like
within a
13
couple
people.
weeks. Yeah.
Nikki, who we got next?
Well, next week we have Barry Schwartz. We'll be talking about the Shroud of Turin. So,
Which is what?
we talked about this before.
It
Okay,
is
well,
the shroud.
our listeners might not
It's-
have been
I'm
talking
sorry,
about it.
Jordan.
It's the
I'm sorry.
shroud that Christ was buried in. And there's a distinct impression on it, whether you choose to believe that it is the face of Christ or not. It looks like our conception of what Christ looked like.
It looks like what he was buried in, and supposedly, I guess.
You mean white guy with long brown hair with blue eyes?
Well, you don't know if he's white or not, but, long brown
No.
hair and beard.
Yeah, it looks like if he when he resurrected, the energy supposed to when he came out, left an imprint. Is what they're saying.
Oh,
So it looks like it's been developed onto. People believe it. It's a heated debate. So we'll be talking with him. He was actually one of the people that got to photograph it. He was within touching. So,
Okay.
but there we out of time, Jordan. So.
All right,
Take us
everybody.
away.
Until next week, don't forget, don't be afraid, only believe.